First thing I'd say is go for a walk, like for real. Put your shit down, put your excuses down and go for a walk. If you have the physical ability to go for a walk, go for a walk. And outside, not on your treadmill. Go for a walk outside. Take a pen to paper and write. Write everything for as long as it takes, as dark as it is, as disgusting as it might be. Write it out. Get it out of your head. It is literally occupying rent-free and taking every ounce of your life from the inside out. Write it down. And fundamentally speaking, even if you don't know what the thing is, ask for help even if you don't know what the help is. Literally say, I don't know how to stop ruminating. I don't know how to get these thoughts out of my head. I don't know how to move the needle. I don't know how to get myself out of bed. I don't know how to wash my hair. I don't know how to shower anymore. I don't know how to go outside without anxiety. I don't know how.
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Jessica Carice, and this space is a place where we talk about seemingly random topics, but in all actuality, they're connected together. And we have a very special guest, Sam Gannum, strategic CEO and creative lead of SG Inc., and a co-founder of a mindset, messaging, and mechanics company called Let's Go 180. Woo!
Yay!
Sam, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to have you on as a guest.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So tell me, so you have two hats. So you have SG Inc. and Let's Go 180. So what does your day-to-day look like managing both of these?
Well, it's kind of like I actually retired the hats, it feels like, and it feels like there's an interconnection between the two and a way that they kind of plug into one another in any order, really. I've been in the print manufacturing space since I'm 19. I was with the same company for 19 years and went out on my own in 2018, purchased a company in 2020, and we take care of anything and everything from strategic branding and printing. Our communication modality is printing, but the perspective that we have is our residual is in your success. So if it isn't curated and if the messaging isn't properly put together, if we haven't identified what the objective behind the effort is, it's just ink on paper at that point. And then it's less exciting. You end up resenting the effort if it doesn't work or land. And our perspective is we just all get to win. Let's Go 180, for me personally, and my partnership with my business partner, Janelle Kelly, despite her 8+ years in the transformational space, I came into her purview as a student and had such success, in the program called the Culture Catalyst that came out of Stanford Masters of Business School that teaches business owners and entrepreneurs how to get unstuck. I didn't understand the association of mindset at the time and had a very muddied relationship with the word and thought it was more of a buzzword and not the reality of the prerequisite is to have a brain. And if you have that, you need mindset training and coaching just like you would the gym. So Let's Go 180 is how we help business owners get unstuck, get crystal clear on their messaging from the inside out, and set them up to successfully scale by attracting the right clients consistently and often.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's really, really amazing. And it's funny that you touch on the word mindset because it's like, that's what I realized for myself was like one of my secret sauce for, I do project management. So for any of these large projects and I tend to get inherited chaotic projects and it always goes back to the mindset. People are burnt out. Why are you burnt out? How can I get you unburnt out? How can we make this the most pleasant environment that we can in order to be successful? So
right. Or why is it prevalent in your life? Like I can say I used to constantly attract chaos. It was what I was used to, but it didn't seem like chaos because it was normal and comfortable. And now being on the other side I've really put the bags down in my life. I have put my bags down. There is no baggage at all any longer, in all sincerity. And we're talking 80-20, right? Because nobody's perfect and nothing's perfect. But the shame, the inherited traumas, the horrible narratives, the internal dialogue, the internal lashing and beratement I just put it down. So now that I've put it down, I can see with clarity, no judgment, no shame, just so much yummy love on me where I'm like, wow, you kind of called all this in, not kind of, but you did. And it became very obvious to me in terms of business because I didn't have lack of sales. Oftentimes people lack sales that I didn't have. I have a gift of talking to a paper bag. I do stand-up comedy on the side. I love talking with people. I love hearing their stories and understanding their why.
Yeah.
And helping them get there if they don't know already. But what I wasn't recognizing was I was attracting quantity, not quality of clients. And so there was an incongruence that was very evident. And so as a result, I was busy and so busy but the furthest from profitable. Like I used to subscribe to the red is dead idea because my accounting was it was atrocious. But the velocity and frequency that I was working in is what was the epitome of my final burnout. I recently had a conversation that made me realize too, I didn't know the difference because I only ever knew burnout.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's always funny because like getting people to see the other side of not living a chaotic life is such a hard concept for people to grasp. So what was it that led you to being like, there has to be another way. I can't be like this anymore?
Well, I think it was a collective of things, but my final sort of dumpster fire was the realization that I purchased a business in 2020 that was misrepresented financially. And so I lost every ounce of my basic needs, home, shelter, food, you name it. Thank goodness for my family and my sister. But I did. And it wasn't all that long ago, a couple of years ago. And recognizing that I had done my due diligence, but there were red flags. I had done my due diligence, but there was an inner knowing that I ignored. I had done my due diligence, but my interested parties and my sister had said, hey, this or that, it kind of, it's not like a 1-for-1. I'm feeling some kind of way. And I came to the conclusion that I think at the time I was still attracting the chaos with regard to the external. So with the purchase came this title of owner, almost this subconscious sort of arrogance, not arrogance in the way I operated, just my culture. We were very attached to our titles.
Yeah.
Your degrees denoted your value.
Yeah.
You were less of a person, more of an acronym.
Yeah.
And so coming to that realization only weeks before COVID. So then I lost whatever clientele I actually had, which was from the business that I built 2 years prior. So essentially I had a ton of debt and no business. And fast forward, I tried to sell my way out of it for 3 years. And that led me down a very, very bad path. A ton of addictive tendencies, no coping skills, if any. And I finally recognized if you've got this one life, it's either going to continue to look this way or you have to go all into the other side, albeit fully unknown. But this is not okay. And even though I know that often we find comfort in our discomfort because it's familiar, it wasn't comfortable and my body was attacking itself. Like I was just extremely sick for an extended period of time for no particular reason. There was no diagnosis attached to it. It was an energetic disease, full-fledged. And I knew there had to be another way, even though I didn't know how.
Yeah.
Because it was that or it was playing God. And that was where my head was.
Yeah. It's really, I have like so many questions because like, it's like when we're operating in that level of like shame, guilt, for me, there was people pleasing as well,
Sure.
lack of boundaries and everything. You still have these ambitious drives, right? And you still pursue them, but it's like you're trying to push a mountain, right? And then you go through like your healing journey and you find you're still ambitious, but it's like, there's a completely different way to operate.
Right.
For success. And I always find that fascinating because most of the time when we're in like those throes and feeling super low or like, what's my purpose? I feel so lost. But it's like you are still doing your purpose. You just can't see it because of all the clouds like in your eyes, right?
Right. I think was really interesting is so because I wasn't lacking action and I wasn't lacking production, it was really hard for me to see because I had this marriage in my mind that hard work had to be painful and that hustle had to be hard. I only knew hard, heavy weights, being a competitor, bodybuilding, running races and placing, big dreams, big aspirations, big delivery, everything had a punch. And in the end, once the dust settled, I go right back into the normal way of being. Everything was like in a momentary season. And I think that some part of me, I either divorced it, it died, I released it, I put the bags down. I was 150% divinely intervened, and have a total attachment to my inner knowing more than I have ever had in my life. And I say that to say with certainty that it's not supposed to be that you have to. Everything in life is a task. If even having a conversation with a friend begins to feel like a task, it's on us to kind of evaluate. Because at the end of the day, recognizing that you have 2 feet that allow you to stand up and get out of bed every day, and that you were one of the chosen people to wake up, like, so you already won. What are we trying to prove? And when I came to the conclusion that funny, not funny, bigger is not always better, and in the sense of small wins, like, it's only a collection of a bunch of small things. It really can be that simple. But I have my PhD in complication, like how to make it complicated and hard.
Yeah.
We got to go up. We can't go downhill. We got to go up. We got to take the windy road. Why? And I came to really see that when I say I put the bags down, when I say that I divorce expectation, I don't mean I walked around expecting nothing of myself and others. Quite the contrary. I started to really understand what I put in my body, what I put in my ears, what I put in through my eyes, my lenses, the rooms I'm in, the power of the yes, the power of the no, but the energy that backs all of it. So suddenly that list, we were chatting the other day and I was saying, I feel like the flow is very manageable. Like, I don't need a day off because I'm not trying to run from something anymore or live for the weekend.
Yeah.
Or just blaze through the list to be done with it. It's like, good luck, dude. I hope you always have a list, because that's what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah.
Right? That means that we're constantly working on something, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a grocery list. And by the way, we even still have our staple groceries that we get every week, right?
Yeah.
It's just the energy from my perspective that backs the thing.
Yeah.
That makes it more sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, why does work sound dull? I laugh more than I've ever laughed. And that's before my comedy journey. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll sit on a call and just crack up for random reason.
Yeah.
That's how I am with my business partner and our team.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, we don't have catnip, but we're laughing constantly.
Yeah. I love what you said when you said the energy behind it.
Yeah.
I love what you said about that. Yeah. Because like for me, I had last year, so I had quit one of my crazy like project management jobs, and like so I was working 2 jobs, so I quit the project management one. And then like I was kind of in this limbo, like, what am I gonna do with myself? Like, this project management stuff is killing me, but then I was still doing my inner work, lots of my inner work, just like purging a lot of stuff out. And I get back into project management again. Like, I didn't pivot careers. I'm still a project manager, still working in tech. But the energy behind it, I'm in a completely different type of scenario now where it is really pleasant. I laugh all the time, and it doesn't feel like I have to do this. Oh my gosh. It doesn't feel heavy. It feels light and it feels fun. And, the people that I work with, they all love working with me, and I love working with them. So I really love that, the energy that's behind it.
Right. And I think that's a great example of what we call in. And again, it's like 80-20, right? Like, stuff's going to happen. Mm-hmm. But your instinct isn't to pack it in and just carry it all.
Yeah.
Your instinct isn't to stay busy.
Yeah.
Right? Being able to sit with like a healthy pause with yourself. I could never sit in silence before. Mm-hmm. I could never sit in a space that was quiet. I had to be busy, and I had to have music to match my energy to kind of program in the distraction. Because if I was stayed out here, I didn't have to come in here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny, because we literally went to the gym yesterday, and I was telling him, I'm like, wow, I was actually able to listen to an audiobook for working out.
Right. Like, you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where before I would have to have the craziest house music to work out. Like,
right. So interesting.
Yeah.
It's just a story we tell ourselves.
It is.
And what's nice is you take what you need.
Yeah.
One day it's an audiobook. One day it is EDM. One day it's instrumental. One day it's silence.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. But there is something about being able to sit in that silence.
Yeah. I notice it. I learned in comedy, unlike in radio or maybe even a podcast, there's certain settings, specifically in a performative space, where pauses are okay.
Yes.
Like, if I get excited and I speak quickly, I could cut the laugh short, right? So when they shared with me, my coach said, this is probably the one arena or one of the few arenas where you can pause and it's not awkward for the audience.
Yeah.
And so even that, tempering my breath.
Yes.
Like, I didn't know I had the choice. I thought I had to be like a 10 all the time.
Yeah.
I didn't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's wild because I think when we think of wellness and health,
yeah.
we think of, at least I did, two places. Your battery of labs on one hand of like, the West of blood work and hormones and so forth, or the self-help section of Barnes & Noble, right? Like I don't ever think I had an in-between. And so today, the 5K a day for me is a walk, not a run, because I have to go out of my way to go slow. My instinct is gas.
Yeah.
So the walk does that for me.
Yeah.
Then a hard stop, there's no phone call on that walk.
Yeah.
We're not talking. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So it requires me to stay accountable on my routine because the second the office opens, we get started.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or the journaling.
Yeah.
Or the 10 goals a day.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, no. Maybe you call it high maintenance. I'm okay with it. I need a little bit of all the things.
Yeah. 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 That phone call stuff.
Yeah.
I had to really cut it out. I had to cut out being on the phone so much because my natural inclination is, oh, I have 30 minutes right now. Let me call so-and-so. But no, I need to not fill up my time. It's like, no. I have 30 minutes. What is the alternative thing I should do versus my default of like picking up the phone, calling someone, and then we talk about nothing.
Or you're multitasking. You're like, I can fit this in
too.
now. 20 minutes in the car. Like, let me do the thing. I killed two birds with one stone. You think of that as efficient. Meanwhile, you're just running through it.
Yeah.
That's the I have to do, not I get to do. Right?
And that even of itself, I have to versus I get to.
Yeah.
Like I literally came to that realization probably a few months ago because I was feeling, I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to do this. I have to do that. And so it's like when you constantly have that playing in your head, everything feels so heavy. Like I felt really, really heavy in my days and I felt like I didn't have enough energy for anything. And now I'm like, wow, I get to. And then like I started having more energy for things because I looked at things in an excited way versus like a burdensome way.
Right. Which is the power of reframing, which is another word that, and I write my own words and I make up my own stuff all the time in my head.
It's okay.
Because I'm like, well, it's easily digestible for me this way.
Yes.
So when people would say reframe, I'd be like, oh, so you want me to lie to myself? That's what I would think. Because it's like, like you're digging for the silver lining, but at the end of the day, everything's in time, right? There's a healthy time to coach someone. There's a healthy time to just listen and receive, hold space for them, etc. So Janelle Kelly, my business partner, when I was a student at the time, and she was my trainer, and she'd say the I get to. And let me say that if there was a sentence that had I get to, if there were 10 things, it would be like, I get to 1, I get to 2. And I'd be like, okay. And then I started to realize, if you actually go with the I have to, who said? If I chose the entrepreneurial path for myself, who said that this to-do list is what I have to do? I decided to go upon this path. So in fairness, like a multi-defined word, I don't have to anything because I decided that this was my path. And then I get to. But there's no having. Nobody determined this path for me. Does that make sense? Like it's not an instruction.
No one told you that you had to do this.
No. And so when I plug that piece in, now I don't work to say it. I don't say it because it sounds nice. Now I feel I'm in alignment with the statement, right? Because to me, that was another thing. I don't think that people try to show up inauthentically. I think they try to be authentic. I think that nobody really wants to see you fail. I think the majority of people want to see you win.
Yeah.
But in the end, you could say the thing all day long. And if you don't really enroll yourself in it, they're just words. Same thing with printing. If we don't even take 10 and just go high level, dude, what's the objective here? And then we pause and we go, all right, so it works and it lands and this is what it looks like. And then we look for blind spots. And it seems silly. You think something benign like a business card. Actually, it's your first impression. And yeah, you can go digital, still your first impression, right?
It's true.
And then you can go up from there and you say marketing collateral. Saying it's a whole bunch of words. They better land because people skim.
Yeah.
Right? And you think about these things you take for granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I
yeah.
stay in my lane, though, I get to work my messaging magic because that is my lane. Right? Like I'm not going to go tell you how to change the oil in your car.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not my lane.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because at the end of the day, we can't guide people where we've not been. And I was a really big muddied set of messages. There was no congruency in my head and my heart. With, total respect to myself. Once upon a time, I think I did say things because they sounded well. And I figured fake it till you make it was okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And man, I don't know who made that up, but please abort that mission.
Yes. It's really, I feel like when you're in the world of being an entrepreneur, you kind of realize how much those proverbial sayings, I guess, are not true.
No, they're terrible.
They're not true at all.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Like one recipe to fall on your face is to fake it till you make it. Guaranteed.
You can't, like, if you're building a sustainable business or a business that actually grows and has an impact, you can't fake nothing.
Right. And also in the end, we've recognized that when we're building a business, people are enrolling in us.
Yeah.
So what you're asking them to do is to subscribe into your inauthenticity, which is counterintuitive to it doesn't even, I'm fumbling on my words because it doesn't even make sense, And so for me, it was like unlearning, and it's hard, and it is
very
growing
hard.
pains hurt.
Yeah, it's very, very hard. And it's definitely not a straight path. Some days you'll be like, yeah, I got this. Some days you'll be like, do I know what I'm talking about? And then others it's like, yeah. Until you finally find your balance and you're finally like address all the root causes of like whatever caused the self-doubt, you get rid of all of that. Then it's like, a little bit more smooth sailing. Of course, things come up, but yeah, no, like changing your core belief system and changing your core identity of what you grew up with and just how you were and how you viewed the world. It's very, very, very hard work.
It is
very, very hard.
If it's all a choice, and I'm not suggesting that people go out and find themselves a business partner or any of these things necessarily, but be really mindful of your circle. And your circle can be a triangle because there can be 3 of you. It can be a diamond because there's 4. It could be a sideways I don't know that it matters how many, but for me, it's like orbs of light. And literally, I need to know at the bare minimum that I have compass in place, and it could be a nod. I don't need you to necessarily wholeheartedly agree, but like my people show me my blind spots. And I can share recently that I ignored a warning. And in all transparency, it wasn't that bad. But I ignored the warning. And it was amazing to see my team just go full force into solution, collectively with respect, come to everyone, myself included, and go, what did we learn? I acknowledged every ounce of the thing. We collectively were like, okay, so in the future, how do we want to, manage something like this? Like we took a kind of a pull, and it was like back to the magic. And I felt, if anything, that happened to reinforce the trust of the unit.
Yeah.
And that wasn't me just saving face and saying, thanks guys for, finding a solution and not, losing your mind on me. That's not what it was. It was literally like, when we want to make a really big impact, there's going to be constraints. Like it's going to happen. And whatever the belief is in God, the universe, I don't believe I fell out of the sky. I don't believe that anyone did. And I know from my experience that there is some divinity in my protection. So for me, I do believe in God. And I think there's no way this is like a torture chamber. And the objective is just to see how far we can go.
Yeah.
What I do think, though, is if we let ourselves, we can create our own prison.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say I did once upon a time.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm speaking about others.
Yeah.
And so I say this just to say, create your village, create your community. It could be you and one other person. It could be someone in your family. Don't fall short of asking. If you don't know, ask.
Yeah.
Like I was having what I thought was lunch in front of a female entrepreneur at a women's event luncheon, which is wonderful. But it took a couple questions to recognize that she's far beyond what I knew, and I'm far beyond what she knew. And then I enroll in a course, and then I pair it with my work, and then I succeed, and then we become a business partners, and then we establish another 7-figure business, and then now we have a team. And all this started because we asked questions. Nobody came to the meeting knowing everything, or finding the right words, or even showing up perfectly dressed. We just showed up and we were like, some days it's elastic pants. Like, we're just here to do the thing. And you ask the question, like, put the ego down, right?
Yeah. Yeah. One question I have, right? Because even about like finding your village or finding your people, like for me, the types of people I attracted before my journey are different than the people I attract now. So would you say that people should focus on doing inner work first and then see how a village comes along? Or I guess, what advice would you give to people who want to change in their life and they do want to be on the more, I guess, positive or uplifting frame of mind?
So I could answer it a couple ways, I think. I grew up here. I'm first generation born American, born in Florida. I've never lived anywhere else but South Florida, which people say is rare, but I don't think it is, although I think I'm friends with all the natives. And so I grew up here. I went to school here, college, master's degree here, all the things.
Yeah.
And I have a big family. So we just happen to know a lot of people. And I was blessed. 3 older sisters. I'm friends with their friends. So as far as quantity, there was no shortage. And I'm still friends with my best friend from 2nd grade. I'm still friends with my best friend from 6th grade. Like, that's amazing to me. I'm blessed because those relationships evolved very differently than me, but connectively, the 3 of us absolutely have a very high level, high value friendship today. That I know isn't necessarily always the case. And there's a few things I'll say. Nostalgia is a beautiful thing. And you don't have to run a friendship to the degree that it explodes for you to change the dynamic or break up with the friend. But adult friendships understand that we need a little bit of a lot of things, right? I don't know if it's different for people that don't have kids versus people that do. I don't have children yet. And so I know a lot of times as parents, you find people whose kids are your friends.
Yeah.
And then you do the mommy and me thing and eventually you become friends. Mm-hmm. In business, I think, although in life really, you get to be extremely responsible and accountable for the rooms you're in. So it's impossible to get it right 100% of the time. Mm-hmm. But 80% of the time, if you're in the right room and you say yes in that room, you know you're safe. If you get an introduction like you and I, there's like a background check that's been done because of the resource that's backing it.
Yeah.
When it came to making new friends, less business, although it is about business. Story that I'll share is I'm newly sober. I quit drinking this year. And sober, I use the wording less about the abstaining from drinking or anything and more about the thought process. Mm-hmm. And this was a choice that I made. I never recognized that I had an addictive tendency as a result of all of these lack of coping. It was a symptom of a much bigger problem, and I made a choice. With that, a certain degree of clarity came along. Pair that with the work we do, you're like tuned up to the highest frequency, at least that I've ever been. And I am very much looking forward to upgrading and ascending. But where I am now, it's like I can't stop the inner buzz in the best way. I'm not ruminating, I'm not obsessing, but I'm so excited. Mm-hmm. And so you notice around you who's kind of backing that excitement, who's maybe taking from it. Then you take into account lifestyle. I could go out to this time of day, late on a Sunday, but my Monday's going to suffer. And I started to notice those people that despite maybe things I would say like, thanks, but I can't make it. And I wouldn't feel the need to explain, but I would want them to know, like, I love you for the invitation, but I have a big Monday, and they wouldn't understand it. That kind of came with my reference of putting the bag down. Again, it's not a breakup. It's not dramatic. It's not kind of cutting. It's just sort of like that might be the season, reason, lifetime. And if you let it kind of flow and fizzle as it should, then they might come back the next lifetime. It doesn't have to be for me. Unless you gave me a reason, I never used to cut you out. I was loyal to a fault, and that made me disloyal to myself. And so I had to understand that change is so cool. Like, you literally will cocoon and butterfly. You will be unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And so you can't take everyone with you, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah.
I just had to understand that the energy around it didn't have to be heavy. And I'll tell you, I think it happens forever, especially as we go through the next decades of our lives.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Your 40s are very different than your 30s. But when I was 30, you couldn't tell me that. And I just turned 40. I'll be 41 this year. Like, just that, I'm 1/10 of the decade in. And I'm like, whoa, this is insane. Right? In a good way.
Yeah.
So just to say, be really mindful, be particular with the values of the people that you're around. I don't mean find people that agree with you always. Actually, I might say the opposite.
Yeah.
But be open. And I think when you ask, should you work on yourself first? I think you should get clear on a common theme in your life first. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. I use women in makeup. It's easy to say because like we can transform ourselves from afternoon to evening very quickly.
Yeah.
Or me having straight hair versus curly hair. It's like two different people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
but we all can do that. We can all chameleon.
Yeah.
If you want to be honest with yourself, if it's an inside job and it's the inside out, just like our messaging, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's a holistic kind of full circle 180 shift of the mindset to say, where are my pain points in myself? What am I unhappy about? It's all about me, by the way. It's not about this because I'm doing this. And then getting real clear, because sometimes I think we also think, oh, I have to tell the person or I have to have a conversation. Why don't you save that energy and just go down and say, in order to remedy this issue, I should be networking at this caliber and do some research. We have Google University at our fingertips. There's no excuse for not having a solution or something to try. And again, I go back to the ask. I mean, social media has made it so that it's completely not nuts to send someone who you admire a message and just say, shy of being a stalker, okay? So if you're a stalker, I didn't say this, but shy of that chaos or insanity, just kind of acknowledging, like hyping up people, like giving strangers compliments. It's kind of that thing. And people on social media that might be doing something you're doing, it's not imitation when you're respecting and giving them like the high five that they deserve the recognition. I guess what I mean is we are in an information stage, both with physical people and peopling and, social media, that makes it so that you don't really have an excuse to change up the vibe in your village if you wanted to. But I will say it is easier to stay the same.
Yeah.
So on that, you got to get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
It's just like you're stretchy.
And that's such a funny concept because like when you pay attention to nature is always evolving, always. And it's so funny because contrary to how we're raised, we're thinking, okay, my parents did this, so I have to do what they did. I have to do everything the same. And then the people who are like, no, I don't want to do things the same, they're looked at kind of crazy, like you're going against the crowd. You have to do everything the same. But nature evolves constantly. Like things are always changing, always growing, always something different, and it's so fascinating that you have so many people, cultures, societies where things need to stay the same. That's still not natural.
Right. You're right. And I mean, even in my household, it's like you didn't have to go far. Like when I think of my upbringing and I hear other people and then they're sharing a similar story to myself, but let's say about their great grandparent. And I'm like, oh, see, even between those generations, there was some evolution. In my home, as long as everything stayed in place, it's obviously a control thing. It's like the external, everything's okay. If the pillows are fluffed and the house is clean, it's a sound, safe home. Meanwhile, you're like, yo, the walls are on fire. There's no smoke alarm. Like, unhinged is the paint color. It is not okay. Right? And that, I think, is a fake it till you make it thing. If you think about it. Right?
That's true.
How do you make a house look better? A fresh coat of paint.
That's true.
You don't ever wonder about the foundation.
That is very, very true. That's very, very true. Because like for me in my upbringing, there were some happy moments, but there were definitely some tough times. And whenever there's tough times, like I didn't want anybody to know.
Yeah.
I didn't want anybody
There's
to know.
a taboo and a stigma. Yeah.
Because like you're led to believe that everybody's life is perfect. So you have to have your perfect life too.
Right.
And that's one of the other things I learned as an entrepreneur is that everyone's just trying to figure it out. Like, you know, like no one's life is perfect at all. Like, you know, and we all have like, especially with starting my podcast too, like everyone has crazy stories and not everything is perfect. Like you don't have to put on that front that everything's 100% okay, you know, because then that, for me, that developed weird coping mechanisms as well. Cause I was just stuffing down everything and didn't want to appear weak.
Right. Which is funny. So like keywords, so like a front. Well, we know nothing's perfect. So what, like, why are we even, what? It's never, there's not 100% of anything. So like that we can retire that. And then when we think of like how we show up in the internalizing, like it's the, putting the balloon underwater, it's the pressure cooker. Like why do we think we're different? But when we're in it, we don't know.
No.
I will say like, some people, and they know they meant well at the time, but they're like, you'll never make that mistake again. And I'm like, dude, like I'm still bleeding out and you're saying this. So it felt very like you want to add salt? It didn't,
that's painful.
Right. But in the big picture, yes. I mean, they are impermanent embedding of memories that will never, ever recur. Yes.
Yeah.
But if you create the message in the mess in such a way that you could save someone else, because when we are in service, and I used to understand that to be only in religious institutions. So I never was like, me helping someone is me being in service. And then when we talk about the energy behind something, I'm a big peopler. I love people, and I'm in the business of peopling, whether it's personal development or any of that. But I recognize that a lot of times busying ourselves with people is a pre-programmed distraction, because it's the same thing. If I'm out here, I don't have to be in here.
Yeah.
But I only knew that because who did I watch? My mom. She has 4 kids and a husband at a minimum, besides the fact that we were really a head count of like 15 people in and out of the house on the regular.
Yeah.
So there was no list of order, and she wasn't on the list. So that's that. And that's not to shame or blame. It's just an observation, right?
Yeah.
And so if I lived in that observation more than not, my mom just turned 70. We are just starting to peel those layers away as a family.
Interesting.
Or I'm just like, Mom, like we're good. Like you go for that walk. Like,
interesting.
Mom, advocate. Mom, you're at the doctor. You had this thought. You're brilliant. Express yourself. But realizing that like always, the parent becoming the child and so forth, not in a way that's demeaning or reductive.
Yeah.
I mean that the woman is finally like, my extent of my responsibility today is to confirm that appointment and make sure that I have this in check. And it's like learning how to water her own grass and not be, essentially a martyr.
Yeah.
But even being a martyr, you know better, but you wouldn't do better because it's all you knew. And then add into that domestic abuse, child abuse, and so forth. And it's a recipe.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you have the cultural stigmas where they don't go to therapy and they don't talk because of shame.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, my mom is just starting to share stories. Happy, sad, indifferent, bad, positive, negative.
Yeah.
We're just getting there.
Yeah.
And I notice that she'll share stories with people who aren't us, and will learn by listening. So it'll be like a friend. You'll ask, when did you come here from West Africa? Or when was the last time you were back home in Lebanon? And you'll have a childhood, conversation. And I'm like, wow, Mom, that happened? Because there's a shame associated, especially in your circle. Because even as our mom, she wanted to put a fresh coat of paint on and come correct and put on a front.
Yeah.
Even as my mom.
Yeah.
So imagine what we do in society.
Yeah.
Because if you can't show up plain face, no makeup, your elastic pants and your God knows how many days old shirt in front of your mom, who can you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it's really interesting for me to unlearn and also keep certain things that I decide, are good for me or what, you know what I'm saying? Kind of keep what you want and do away with the rest. But it's become so imperative to me to take inventory in a way that's graceful and fun and kind and flowy and ease, and not hard work and have to and taking the hammer and just pounding the pavement and being aggressive with me.
Yeah. It's so fascinating how much of our behavior is learned from observation, because like even with my mom, she was very, very, very involved with the church. And so like growing up, I just watch her just work, and then church people, she'd be on the phone with church people all the time, like, ministering or counseling to them. So like, and then my mom, like, then she'd just be tired and then, sleep, have weird sleep schedule as well. So I never saw her putting herself first ever, actually. Right. I never saw her putting herself first. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so funny because like, me and my mom were not the closest. So growing up in my teenage years, I'm like, I want to be nothing like her. That was my mantra. I'm never going to be like my mom. That was one thing my journey taught me. I have a lot of characteristics from my mom,
which is beautiful.
Yeah. And maybe who I am today,
and it's beautiful.
Yeah. And I had to unlearn that because I was heading in the right direction of putting myself last. So instead of it being church people, just be maybe people I work with, It would just be other people that I'm just always on the phone with, trying to help them, whatever. And I was putting myself last and not dealing with none of my stuff. And then my body starts to fall apart. And, I get shingles at 30, like from putting myself last.
Right.
Completely.
I think also too, the boundary, back to the wordsmithing and the association of words, but it's how my brain operates. Mm-hmm. It's like the safe zones, but for us. So I used to think of them as like, can't let those people in, like I was being security and being aggressive. Instead of it being like, no, Sam, like this is your playing field, and like this is your area, like this is where you can have fun, and realizing like it's for me just as much as it is for the other person. Mm-hmm. And that most people appreciate it. Like it's not, but I was coming at it from, again, it was backed by a different energy. It was very hammered, resentful, like stay off my turf, aggressive for no apparent reason. Mm-hmm. Nothing to do with those people. And I'm sure I owe many apologies. But to say it in the sense of like, trust that if a person's behaving that way outwardly, imagine what they're doing to themselves.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And I can tell you with just total love and respect and honor for myself today, that man, I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemy if I had one what was going on inside. And so when we notice people kind of behaving that way, just understand, I'm not saying be a doormat by any stretch. I just mean when we try to breathe and we try to be empathetic and we try to just delineate the difference between observation and judgment, just understand like you wouldn't want to live in that head for 5 minutes. Yeah. And we all have moments. And if you live by 80-20, like it's things are going to happen. Holidays are a funny time.
Yeah.
And if you believe in some cases, you're also bearing a burden of people that came before you even. Yeah. I mean, depending on your level of belief.
Yeah. It's true.
You just don't know. You just don't know. I think though that I could say for me, I'm less reactive outwardly because I'm less reactive inside. But the way I keep myself tempered is by way of the accumulation of the practices. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit of those things every day. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And trust when I don't do them, I feel off. Mm-hmm. One time, like I'm off, I just feel off.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful though, because I just get a little off kilter and I feel it because I'm close enough to myself to notice.
Yeah.
We don't need to get shingles at 40, right? Because I don't need to be in bed for 3.5 weeks again in January.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's so funny, like the practices, because I was even describing to my husband about how I feel now after doing like all the inner work versus how I used to feel. And I told him, I said, I felt like a shattered mirror inside. It was just like static thoughts everywhere, no coherence at all, like worry, guilt, whatever. Just, I felt shattered. And so with prioritizing myself, doing all my little, your practices. So I like read, meditate, journal, pray. It's allowed me to, and I allow myself to feel things too, right? It's like, I feel like, I guess the best image I can describe, it's like, when we have a hurricane passing through, but you have the eye of the storm and you're just so calm. So I feel really, really calm while just observing things that go on around me. And like, I'm able to identify like, okay, it's time for me to pay attention to that. Let me, go through that. But I can be recentered, where I don't feel like instead of being the center, I used to feel like a tree that would just in that hurricane versus being the eye. Like very, very calm and still and centered. And it's like, if things happen now, it definitely doesn't even feel like a big deal. Like, I'm like, okay, I just have to do this. I have to put this plan in place, address it head on. And yeah, it doesn't feel like I feel like I don't have bad days anymore.
Right. I think a big thing for me is I don't dance around stuff any longer.
Yeah.
But that was also an inside job because we can write ourselves passes all day long. Mm. That's where I thought reframing was lying. Because you could tell someone to take a walk, you know what I mean? In a 4-letter word combination or in a well-articulated sentence, right? Mm-hmm. So that's how I would kind of play the game with myself. And then I realized, no wonder people showing up disingenuous triggers me. And even the word trigger triggers me. Because I was singing off internal triggers constantly inside me because I wasn't showing up authentically or I wasn't, right? So it's like what's irritating me outside here is likely irritating me inside. And
that's really good.
We're only mirroring. So you use the analogy of the mirror, right?
Yeah.
And again, I mean, do we have moments? Yeah, I made Janelle a laugh this weekend. I said to her, I was having a moment and I realized like, okay, the solution's in front of me and we just have to execute. And it really wasn't like all that heavy. It was just, they came to me kind of back to back. And I was feeling like, here's a lesson. And I got a dual lesson kind of back to back as it relates to a network of people who've been in my life for a very long time. And nothing they were doing was to me. It wasn't bad or good or anything. In fact, it was just an observation of like, if this continues, this could look like 1, 2, 3. I should just proactively get out in front of it and then adjust accordingly. And before you have a discussion, you're having one in your mind. So I made her laugh. I said, I just want you to know I sat with it. While sitting with it, I ate a bunch of pretzels and I ordered 3 pairs of shoes. But that's the extent of my outward, like, I didn't try to derail myself from it. I didn't start working and dive into something to busy my mind. Yeah. I'm not joking. I sat literally on the couch. I was accompanied by pretzels from Trader Joe's. But what I'm saying is that was the extent of my like derailing.
Yeah.
Was just sitting with it and just kind of crunching away and going, all right, so like, you know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Before I would shove things down, I was a perfectionist at compartmentalizing. I mean, wow. And innately, I busied myself socially, which is where I decided I had addictive tendencies.
Okay.
Because I didn't have a drinking problem necessarily as society would paint it.
Yeah.
There wasn't alcohol daily. There wasn't alcohol during the day. Nothing was in my coffee.
Yeah.
All the things that life shows you would be the reason you may have a problem.
Yeah.
And it became the energy behind the drinking. And it became, this gets to be an escape. Right?
Yeah, the escape.
And that's,
Yeah.
By the way, it's the furthest thing from one. If you want to come eye to eye with your problem, drink your way through it. At least for me. That was for me. No, I have no issue. Ironically, I was a bartender years ago. And I love the association and marriage of like a dining experience, pairings and all that.
Yeah.
So there's no stigma with me. I just personally don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
But I say that to say you sit with your feelings. I'm not trying to neutralize them or diffuse them by telling myself a story.
Yeah.
Or dilute them with a drink.
Yeah.
So if it's some carbs, it
Carbs
is
is
what
okay.
it is. Right.
It's okay.
Right.
I love some bread pudding,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my balance now.
Yeah. Sitting with it. But sitting with it is very hard for people.
Yeah.
It was
it's
very hard for me.
Yeah.
It's hard.
None of this stuff that we're talking about is easy. In theory, it is, but it's not easy in practice.
Because you're so trained not to feel it, not to sit with it.
Right, and you've lived in the latter more than not. Mm-hmm. The majority of your time has been sat in, for Sam, sitting, shoving, submerging, diluting, pushing away, distracting.
Compartmentalizing.
Oh my God. Once I actually realized that it would be the equivalent of packing your house every day and moving the exact same number of boxes, but then repackaging them in different size and shape boxes, but never getting rid of any stuff.
Oh.
I realized that that was my life for 35, 36, 37 years. It was Tetris of the Tetris.
Yeah. Because it's like
nothing really moved.
Yeah, nothing really moves. You have these like superficial fixes for maybe some type of emotion that might be gnawing at you that's like a little bit too uncomfortable, right? But
it was like a Pinterest board of my emotions DIY'd and moved into this other room, but with a fresh coat of paint and some seasonal colors.
Yeah.
And all is well in the world.
And then some have a bolted lock.
Yeah. Oh, those, we probably didn't even move those. They just shoved them. Yeah. Yeah. And then they sat, and then things were cool. They were cool. I reframed, told myself a story, moved on. Next week, what do you think happens? Mini explosion. Mm-hmm. Pack it up. You know what I mean? And and I'm saying, like, I mean it. I lived there for, it's seemingly forever. But when you're on this side, when 80% of the time your life is clear, when 80% of the time you take wild, inspired action with calm and ease, when you find a problem and you just kind of, okay, and now what? When you ask for help, it's wild because you sound like you've been here forever. Meanwhile, you're like, I'm new here. This is new. This is new.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But the thing I will say is, to give credit for all of us that are always a student and always on a journey, you don't have to do 100% all the time. Like, that was my tendency, so I would do nothing. But even when I was doing nothing, to your point initially when you were like, it's funny, we're burning out, but we're still aspiring. Mm-hmm. You don't notice it because you take it for granted. But when you're having that internal battle, it's because you are trying.
Yes.
You're trying.
Yes. Yeah.
You are.
Yeah.
You're just, it's like you're trying so hard, but you want to move that mountain by yourself.
Yeah.
And you want to look good while doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Okay.
And like still maintain the appearances and everything.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, it's funny not to be insulting and not to be the comedian, but like, isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Like, how did you think this was going to go? You think you weren't even going to look disheveled when it was over?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like it's smooth sailing. It's so funny. I got distracted just now. I literally had a train of thought.
Oh. You can grab it.
Oh, it's yours. I thought it was my husband's. Oh, it's already 5:15. Oh my goodness. Wow, Sam, I lost track of time.
This is good.
I can't believe the hour already passed by. Oh, wow.
Off, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. We could talk here for hours.
I know. I like it, though.
Yeah. So we were talking about moving the mountains, and we were talking about...
preserving how we look.
Yeah, preserving how we look. Yeah. So, like, during that time in my life where I felt like everything's hard, I'm trying. I used to get a recurring dream that I was like squeezing my mouth so that my teeth wouldn't fall out.
Wow.
And it would be a recurring dream. Like,
would you wake up and your jaw was sore?
No, I would wake up being like, are my teeth okay?
Yeah. No, I would be such a clencher that I even remember my jaw used to be so sharp because I would clench so hard. And so when I'd wake up, I knew my teeth were there because they were locked. So I'd have to I'm not even joking, or massage my jaw and eventually, and it's a funny joke because I don't stop talking, but you guys, I would wake up. I mean, it was horrific.
Wow.
It was horrific because you could fake it till you made it. And now I'm alone. When am I alone most? When I'm sleeping.
Yeah.
So now I'm asleep and with my thoughts. And even that, you wake up exhausted. You could sleep for 2 hours or 8 hours. You could sleep for 10 hours or, 2 days.
Yeah. I would still be tired. Yeah.
Exhausted.
Yeah. It's so funny because last week I probably had one of the craziest busy weeks I've had. I did a quick trip to Baltimore, but there was nights I probably didn't go to sleep until like 2:00 in the morning, like multiple nights in a row. But I didn't feel like a bus hit me like before. Like I could have a chill week and still the end of the week I would feel like a bus hit me.
Right. Again, it's the energy backing all the things.
Yeah.
Like it sounds, I used to think like this is woo woo. It's not woo woo.
It's not.
And if it is, it
true. Works.
But even if it is like true woo, it's true.
Yeah.
I have more on my plate. When Janelle as a student said to me, oh, no, your plate's going to get bigger. And I was like, what? She's like Thanksgiving platter size. And I'm like, Janelle, I can't, like enough. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But it's like enough of the not good stuff, more of the good stuff, right? I wouldn't want to call it bad, but it's like, you know,
It's like not ideal.
just, yeah, like, or not all the time stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's true. I have more that I get to do in a day than I've ever had. More diversity in what I get to do in a day. 2 teams, multi-directional, and more checks and balances in place of people, alarms that go off that remind me to be here now.
Yeah.
People of my, sounding boards in my village.
Yeah.
I call them little but very bright, beautiful orbs of light just guiding me.
Yeah.
And, 1,000,001 check-ins, like a Dropbox in a day. Just Sam syncing up all day long. Where you at? How we feeling? Where are you standing? What do you think? And just like sitting with it.
Yeah.
Like literally.
Yeah.
My sit with it used to be I'll go work out. You didn't sit with it.
No.
You literally tried to move through
That's
it.
a distraction. Yeah, working out. Yeah.
I love it.
That. Yeah.
I love the training part. I just mean like, and if you take 10, you realize you don't have to sit with something for hours. If you're doing this regular thing.
It resolves itself really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least it takes up less space.
Yeah, it definitely does take up less space.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like for me, I think if something arose I need to address, like it would derail my whole entire day.
Or weeks.
Yeah, right?
Right?
Yeah. Or weeks. Yeah, there was times that something would take like weeks to address and I would just be feeling off. Now it's like, maybe if it's something like that was major, maybe a couple hours and then I'm back to myself.
Right.
But I addressed it,
Right.
addressed it fully, thoroughly. And then I'm good.
Right. It's so funny because the growth as it relates to how much I sit in things is now down like, I'd say 95%, like for real.
Yeah.
And life is doing its thing. So I'm here to say it's not like I somehow had this like magical pause button and I'm just sitting with the umbrellas in my drink and I'm chill.
Yeah.
But like when you understand where you're headed, when you understand where you're not headed, when you choose where you fall in terms of what statistic you intend to become, because we all will become a statistic.
Yes. Yep.
And then when you're like good with it, you just like, I'm not the balance person. I'm more the harmony person.
Harmony is nice. Yeah.
Because some days you got to carry 90 on the right. Like I'm not innately not balanced. And I felt like I was setting myself up for failure trying to tightrope things. It's like, that's not my thing. It's just not. I'm more of like an explorer, challenger, like personality, which I think is maybe common for a creative also. But so when I look for harmony, and it's a little sprinkle of this and a little bit of that, then I'm like, all right, we're cool. Like, I feel like I watered different parts.
That's an interesting concept because, like, I always like to be the Libra and like, I have to have balance. But then I tell people I'm really extreme. So I guess I don't. To your point, I tell people I'm intense, I'm extreme. Like, when I'm committed to something, like,
All
that's
in.
it. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. So I guess, to your point, that is more harmony for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not balanced. No, I'm being really extreme and really intense.
So my intensity is there and my follow through is there full force.
Yeah.
But when I sprinkle things in and I have an amazing partner that advocates for this, when she's like light bulb moment, so we'll get the ball rolling. I used to think I had to stay up all night and finish the thing. That doesn't happen. Actually, it's 2 hours in the morning. It's better than it would have ever been had I stayed up the night before. But we got the juices flowing. We had the talk. We bulleted the thing. we manifested with regard to a conversation.
Yeah.
And we do it with our teams. How do we prioritize this? Because there's 80 things here. Fair enough. Then I realized it's more than divide and conquer. Mentally speaking, one connects to another in most cases.
Yeah, they do.
So if you take small bites, get the whole thing done. And you know what? You get it done with ease, grace, and flow.
Yeah.
Not just like I have to, but I get to.
Bust the wall.
We know,
That's what you said.
for us, we know it's working because when our team regurgitates it back, we're like, dude, you got it.
Yeah.
You know, you got it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's a reminder though. It's not like I don't like float out of bed and I'm like, today it's going to be, I mean, I try and I'm like, okay, Sam, like, but that's Janelle's persona in our partnership, like Glinda the Good Witch. And she's like, today, and it's bliss and it's genuine.
Yeah.
And then me, the more square type A personality who still makes lists and they're color coded and Post-its are my favorite. And, like typical Capricorn-esque personality that people tell me I am. I have no idea.
Yeah.
And so they're complementary, but that's kind of going back to what I say, like keep your circle varietal. People that are just like you, like you're amazing and you're magic, but the world probably would be better if there were more of you, but in your circle, like the spice of life, like a kitchen.
Yeah.
Like keep it spicy.
Yeah,
keep it varietal.
Yeah.
People will show you things you've never even thought of.
That's true. That is true.
You could that's your board of directors without even knowing it. We think everything's money.
Yeah.
I got to pay this and I got to pay that. And you should have, the accountant and the attorney and the coach. And absolutely. But I'm talking about like the 24 hours in the day. Like you can learn so much from your village.
That's true.
It's just we have to be in the right rooms to have the guard down to be open.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the right room and you're cynical and you're skeptic and you don't know where you stand and what's this person's intention and life has you programmed in that way. You know?
You won't see it.
No. And then you're suspect. You're cynical. You're like, what do they want? They're being nice. What do they want?
Yeah.
Isn't that terrible?
That's actually really important because like when you move from, the I'll say lower energy fields or,
You're right. I think.
Yeah. When you move from that to the more higher energy fields, your perception is completely different. Your thought process is completely different. You're not looking at people like, what do they want? Blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah.
Right.
There's certain like pattern recognitions for people who are actually like that, but it's like a way more obvious when someone's like truly just trying to take something from you or get something from you versus someone who's just really happy and just.
But then you'll notice in the right room, the minority of the people are the taker.
Exactly.
The majority are like, we came and took time out of our day to bring the value we bring.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we have a million other value-added money-making activities we could be doing and not doing this. And then when people react or program themselves to work from a place of abundance, less scarcity and fear, they don't make desperate decisions. So now I don't need to curate the right message for you to sound right so you do business with me so I can pay my rent.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just being yourself.
You're just like...
And you just happen to make business too. You know what I mean? Like,
that's an organic relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like... I said it today and the room laughed and I was like, it's like dating, but for business. In the sense that for a long-term relationship, would you not have your values outlined, your red lights, your green lights, your needs list, your must-do without list? You would have those.
You know what's funny? Sam? A lot of people have trouble with dating.
I know. I do a lot of comedy about dating. I know.
Yeah. But but to your point where before I met him, like I didn't have any of that. And so I had horrible dating stories. And so one day I was like, you know what? I know everything I do not want. And let me make the list of all the characteristics and traits I want.
But on that end, I'll say this, and I'm speaking about me here.
Yeah.
So whether it was dating or business, I used to think I have a lot of nerve asking for someone to have something I don't have. And I'm not talking about some things that you're like, are you serious? Like money or being a lefty and not a righty or having brown hair or blonde hair. I'm talking about innate values. So I got real clear with myself. This was at the very start of my decision to keep my vibe so high, to stay the hype girl that I am for myself and remove low energy activities, substances, people, etc. These are all like a drug. And so when I made that decision in February, I realized how interesting that I want to be with clients who have expansive thoughts, who are always value added, who are here for the cause and have no issue discussing money because we're here to create business opportunity, but not to transact. And so as a result, I'm not saying I emulated them all, but I looked and I was like, are you transactional? No. Do you show up with the intention of bringing max value for the collective? Yeah. Are you crystal clear on the financials? No. We could use some work. Done. And so I would use that. And don't you know, it bled into every relationship, personal or otherwise. And what do you think happened to the quality of people I started attracting? But the most powerful thing I think that happened for me is here I thought I was going to have to do the breaking up. Like I had to fire a few clients. I didn't have to fire them. They just disappeared.
Yeah.
I was no longer attractive to them.
Yeah.
I was like, This is the nicest, easiest, hard conversation I've ever had to have in my life. And I mean it in droves. I'm talking double digits of people, not like one or two experiences. And that just, God created a beautiful space for the right ones to come in.
Yeah.
Like it's undeniable. And it's what I'm looking for is looking for me, and what's for me will never miss me.
Yeah.
But when you know that and you don't just say it,
Yeah.
you know it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Then the way you walk into a room and command your energy is different.
It's completely different. Yep.
Like everything in the way that you show up is different. Well, don't you know that is an extension of your brand? Because who powers your brand? You. Because otherwise it's just ink on paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And that's a very interesting concept that you highlighted about making space for something new. I think that concept is really, really, really overlooked, where I think some people may have like a preconceived notion that you can keep the negative or keep the lower energy stuff, lower energy activities, but expect the higher energy, higher fulfilling, higher reward, whatever you call it, to be able to mix in the same box.
Well, it's slightly the definition of insanity. If you think about it.
Yeah.
It's like they don't fit. But my personality type, again, used to be with loyalty to a fault, that we had to have a falling out, that something had to happen, that I didn't have the right to change my mind.
Okay.
My discernment was constantly in question. Right? And then what would happen? I would not exercise my discernment. Time and time would accumulate. I'd come out like a freaking like a Tasmanian devil. It would be a terrible explosion. Now I'm apologizing, so we've lost sight of the reason from the get, right? Like from the beginning, I've lost, and now merit is in question. I acted out of character. It's just this whole thing now.
Yeah.
Now we have another story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I came to the idea that like you have the right to change your mind, like you actually can. And usually, and this will be something that, surprisingly enough, yes, the biggest lesson came from Janelle's training, but oftentimes we get irritated or react from certain areas and nothing's actually changed in the equation but us.
That's true.
So we're upset with you because you're 1, 2, 3, or 4, but in your defense, nothing about your 1 to 4 has changed. You've been showing up the same way. She calls it like, if the person's name was Sam, she'd be like, they're just salmon. They're just showing up like Sam.
Yeah.
She's just being herself.
Yeah.
And to me, it made it more digestible.
Yeah.
Because they didn't mean harm. They just were being them.
Yeah.
And I believe in a world where we give everyone space to be themselves. And then I get to decide if it works for me. And you get to decide if I work for you. I'm not everybody's cup of tea either.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that gets to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Again, back to dating. Like, so no matter what the issue, you just got to stay dating the person just because? No. Like, it doesn't work that way. I'm not a dating expert. I might be a comedic expert with comedy, but I'm not a dating expert. I just mean to say, when you think about things on a longevity, on a relationship for the long term, you start to go, do our values align? And I think that some things are assumed, which is dangerous.
Yes.
And I think also that we don't feel comfortable in some regards questioning a person's values.
Yeah, that's right. We don't.
Like, how dare I? Well, what the hell do you mean?
No.
If I saw something that showed me that like trust can be in question, and trust is number one for me, what have I done to myself by not questioning it? I don't mean walking up and accosting them. I mean sitting with it and going, did I, like, so this and that happened, and then adjusting accordingly. Like, I say that because look at the situation with me. And then I bought a business, and at the time anyway, you know, I lost everything. I don't declare that as my truth today, but at the time that is what happened. Like, it is. And it's just interesting to think, so we want to walk around, want to paint a fresh coat of paint, want to smile, want to be polite, want to be intelligent, don't want to ask for help because we got to do this alone or we're not strong. Right? And then also show up in service constantly for others and not ourselves. Don't burn out, okay? Got it. Like, it sounds ridiculous.
It's a recipe for disaster.
And when you hear it that way, you got to laugh. Like,
and then you wonder why, like, at least here in the U.S., why things are the way they are with people. There's so much anxiety, depression, the health crisis, all this stuff. But it's because we're literally programmed to operate in that dysfunction.
War. It's an internal war. I mean, the world's on fire in some regard, in many regards. But if you think about it, that's what you're creating inside yourself, internal division. You're at war with yourself.
And that's literally what you see.
That's like
at play.
And I'm not talking about sides here. I'm saying, like, some things are facts over feelings. And for me, factually speaking, I built a prison. I wrote a book in my mind. I starred as every character. I did all their makeup. I stated how they'd show up. I even did their editing. And I subscribed, liked, and shared all of that. And that's where I lived. And now I'm like, I could laugh at it because, man, was that disastrous.
So if you could give that version of yourself, someone who's living in, not in harmony, someone who feels burnt out and has a horrible narrative inside their head, you know, a lot of self-hate talk and coming from a low place, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for that person to start to get out of it?
The first thing I'd say is go for a walk. Like, for real. Put your shit down, put your excuses down, and go for a walk. If you have the physical ability to go for a walk, go for a walk. And outside, not on your treadmill. Go for a walk outside. Take a pen to paper and write. Write everything for as long as it takes, as dark as it is, as disgusting as it might be. Write it out. Get it out of your head. It is literally occupying rent-free and taking every ounce of your life from the inside out. Write it down. And fundamentally speaking, even if you don't know what the thing is, ask for help, even if you don't know what the help is. Literally say, I don't know how to stop ruminating. I don't know how to get these thoughts out of my head. I don't know how to move the needle. I don't know how to get myself out of bed. I don't know how to wash my hair. I don't know how to shower anymore. I don't know how to go outside without anxiety. I don't know how. I don't know what I need, but I know I need something. You'll be shocked when we receive the advice, like if I Googled it for you. Sometimes getting the information from you, for me anyway, was a little easier to receive. Because when I go and Google, I go down the rabbit hole of rumination. And what does that allow? More shame. More horrific internal dialogue, more internal blame, and more abuse. And I say, walk, write, and ask, because why not? For every reason you come up with a reason why, I can give you 10 why you should. Because if nothing changes, nothing changes. And the truth is, you don't have to complicate it. It doesn't, none of those things require money.
It's true.
None of them require money. None of them require a professional.
No.
I don't need you to have the highest degree to go Google me. Some journal prompts and maybe a local organization, maybe an emergency hotline. But writing that stuff out is like the safest, darkest space. Because at the end of the day, it's on paper. Burn that shit. Throw it away. I don't care what you do with it. But write it. Don't type it. Write it. Like, write it. Just keep writing. Get it out of you. And trust that when you read it, not only will you be exhausted, you would think, if anyone ever talked to someone I love this way, you would get a shovel. So, like, why is it okay for you? And I think when you see it in black and white, and those walks are like, truly, I put my life on them. Like, and you could find 15 minutes, like, You don't have to get world record here or pace or any of that. Just walk.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? Because so we got Dingo, the doggy, 3 years ago, and I like when we bought the house, like I was still in my dark spot. We got the doggy, and then I started going for a walk. I started going for a walk. It would be 15 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. But that gave you something to nurture outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Which is different than a distraction.
Yeah.
If you let it, I'm sure a dog and walking could become one. But when we nurture something outside of ourselves, like it sounds ridiculous. And again, used to think like, wow, you're nuts. I talk to my plants. My mom taught me that.
I talk to my plants too.
Listen, they do respond. They're flourishing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never used to recognize the magic and the simplicity. I'm telling you, I have my PhD in complication.
I feel like that's all of us though.
We do, because doesn't it sound better to make it complicated?
Yes. Because we're
And then
complex
it's the
beings,
secret.
so we need complex things.
Right. And it's the secret sauce. Why is it a secret? Why? What are we hiding? Look, let's go for a walk.
Yeah.
You're having a day, get your pen and paper. Go, girl, go. Set a timer. You don't know what to write. Trust. Eventually, your writing pattern will change. It'll go from nice and polite and dear Sam to horrific. And then maybe back. And maybe in English, and maybe in Arabic, and maybe in Spanish. And maybe upside down and left to right and right to left. And just purge. You've been carrying all that shit around. Probably half of it's not even yours.
It's that is a whole nother conversation. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just ask for help. Asking for help can look so different to so many people. You can say, can you call me? That can be your ask for help. Will you go for a walk with me tonight?
Yeah.
I didn't do any of that. And I didn't even notice, because for me, I wasn't isolating, because I was busying myself. I was the networking queen. I was winning awards. I was all these things, which I still am. But I'm there and I'm present and I'm in the right rooms.
Yeah.
And it's quality over quantity.
The intentionality.
Yeah.
Yep. That's so wonderful.
Thank you
That's
so
wonderful.
much. My heart is so full, honestly. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And where can people find you?
Everywhere. You can find me on Instagram, Sam W. Gannum, think_SGink_branding, our community page on Facebook, Let's Go 180 Degrees. And my website is thinksginc.com or sam@thinksginc.com.
Thank you so much, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.